Hello and welcome to Iki Makanzel's Makala podcast channel. Makala, meaning branches, Kasisuthu. My name is Amanda Masondo and I'm your host. We hope this podcast finds a way to impact, educate, and inspire your next. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Buzzsprout. Basically everywhere where you find your podcast fix. Every first and last Friday of every month. Luyanda Jafta, CEO and co-founder of the People's Fund, is our next guest. Take a listen. Welcome, Luyanda.
Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. I didn't have a quick comeback to that. I was thinking about a bunch of things at the same time.
No problem.
You
No
good,
problem.
though?
I'm fantastic. I'm glad that you're my first guest, and I'm glad that you're here.
You're glad I'm your first guest.
100%.
So you don't want anyone listening to this show?
We're gonna be great. This is the beginning of good things. All right. First things first.
Yes.
Give us a sense of the man behind the brand that is the People's Fund, and where were you born and raised?
Complicated question. So the People's Fund, let me describe where I was born, maybe just a little bit. So I was born in actually don't know. I was born here in Park Lane, nah? I don't know where I spent my first year of life, if it was Soweto or the East Rand.
Okay.
I spent most of my life in the East Rand, my developmental years, in a town called, it's inside Brakpan.
Okay.
It's called Leachville. My neighbors was a millie farm behind our house.
Hectic.
So Kulilma Plazin, like full on.
Yeah.
And I actually always see that people who don't come from a place usually take advantage of a place. I find people who grew up in Joburg, I'm gonna anger people. I find people who grew up in Joburg. Wait, which one of you guys grew up in Joburg before I make this comment?
I mean, I grew up in Germany.
Okay, sorry. They're great people, but people who don't come from a place usually take advantage of a place. I find people who grew up in Joburg have a sense of complacency when they interact with the opportunities here. Like our days, Kaya, like when you finish school, the days start like at 1 p.m. Like you wake up very early. Like nothing happens for most of the day, right? Because there's nothing to do. Make kids maybe, but like besides that, there's nothing to do, right? So I grew up in the East Rand. Then I went to Wits for 4 years. Was supposed to be doing an economic science degree. I was doing the stuff in the background and learning human beings of the other gender, right? So I was doing girls and alcohol for the layman. Yeah, and left, dropped out, started businesses from the age. Well, I started business at the age of 13. My mom.
Yeah.
They were irresponsible with money, né?
Okay.
So I had an allowance. So not her herself, but like her friends.
Yes.
They'd be broke in a Mampara week.
Okay.
So my mom used to tell her friends that, yeah, so my middle name is Kulu. It's probably a man, right? Which basically he's got a bit of money saved. Maybe borrow from him, right? Now I've got a maths background. So they'd borrow on the 23rd, 22nd. They'd be like, we just need 500 Rand.
Okay.
We're like, okay, cool, I'll give it to you. But on the 25th, I want 750 Rand, right? They'd be like, sure, great. Like, because they're not doing the maths. They're just going, man, I need petrol for the next 2 days. The 250 doesn't cost much. I'm doing the maths. 50% return in 2 days.
Yeah.
Like, take all of my money, right? So that was my first business. But then post-varsity, and in fact, even in varsity, part of my flunking was, there's a course I was flunking.
Yeah.
Economics 2B, I remember it, right? It teaches you the concept of Forex and all of those things.
Yes.
I actually was a Forex trader in varsity, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I made a profit while failing that
actual-
course. So that was awesome. Textbooks are useless. That's what I'll tell you, right? Or rather, exams are useless. The true exam is life. That's what I think. And then I started building a bunch of businesses. First business was Paybook. We were doing digital marketing. This was 2012. 2012, give or take. And what we do is we pay people to tweet. So we were doing influencer marketing before the word influencer marketing existed.
Hectic.
We had some interesting people on the platform in the early days. Like one of the first people we had on the platform was Boiti. Then we had Nontle. Then we had, were there any other celebrities? No, there weren't any other celebrities. There was one person. Let me shut up, because we're on good terms now. So when I say she thought she was a celebrity, she wasn't. And then we had a fight. We're okay now.
You solved it.
Ah,
all that
solved
matters.
it. Threatened us with lawyers. Guys, I don't know how many times I've been threatened with lawsuits in my life. Yes. And I wish I was scared of them. like I
You keep
honestly
going
wish,
for them.
like I wish I was scared of. I wish people understood. Nah? Like I grew up in a tumultuous home, right? And I had a tumultuous teenage years, right? Where I was fighting every weekend, like physically fighting. Started doing weed when I was like 13, right? Drinking when I was 12. So like I've seen like the depths of life, right? So like doing business is easier. And like when you like me with a lawsuit, like you give me that thing, I was like, this reminds me of what real life feels like, right? So like
Understood something. I can actually. You're challenging.
you're challenging something that makes me feel like I'm alive again. Because that's part of the depression we're experiencing, is the lack of life. Like, do you think like hunter gatherers had depression? Like this person's looking, going, man, that cheetah wants to kill me. Like that lion is going for my neck.
But if I go there first,
if I run away, like I'll live, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm hungry.
yeah,
I don't think they had time to think about depression. I think depression is a construct. It's a social construct we created over the past few hundred years. Like, and it's had ramifications on our brains and how we function because of these walls we live in.
yeah.
Like we don't experience real life. Like we don't taste the experience of being alive. You know?
So would you say now is that what you think entrepreneur is then?
Entrepreneurship. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Can you try not to swear? Please. Yeah.
That's gonna be hard.
Is it walls? Is entrepreneurship walls? And is that what's depriving it?
Like a soft cat, like entrepreneurs, like are just soft cats. Like if I'd say frankly, I'm not swearing, right? I used the euphemism for the word, right? Entrepreneurs are we're whiny little nonsenses. Like we've got delusions of grandeur. We've got ideas about how we're supposed to be saviors. We've got delusions about how entrepreneurship is supposed to work. The only thing you're supposed to do is solve problems. Still, it's not about. If it's about prestige, you're not an entrepreneur. You're a marketer. Like, I hope I'm making sense. Like you're a brand.
I hear you.
And we get lost in that nonsense, right? So I get bored with entrepreneurship. Like like how many times like me and you chat. Like maybe you say there's an interview at this and this platform. I'm like, I don't want to go do that. Waste of time. Why? So they can say Luyanda had a voice and had an idea that helped shape this thing. It's like, no, like it's stupid. Like what are we doing? I even had a 2-year hiatus from doing any talks or anything, right? Because I was like, now I'm a brand that speaks on entrepreneurship, right? And telling people how entrepreneurship is supposed to be done and that sort of thing. And it's like everyone then wants to emulate that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm being my natural self, which doesn't actually care, right? I think it's like life is quite interesting, right? Where it's like, if you ask me why I started the People's Fund, because I think it's stupid that solution doesn't exist, right? It's like, it's really dumb. The idea that you have a government, nah,
Yes.
that gives out orders to people, nah, and says, deliver this order so that I can pay you, nah? You got an entrepreneur who's got no background with money,
Yes.
who needs to figure out how to get this thing to government. You got financial institutions that will not borrow to this guy because it doesn't fit the profile of somebody who can borrow. You've got financial institutions that government created that can borrow money to these entrepreneurs, and then they can deliver the order. All of these systems don't work together. Like all of them work independent of each other. And you're like, I don't know, maybe I'm stupid. You're the same government that's buying from this person. It's a different department, no doubt. But you're taking money, you're sending it to this institution so they can borrow money to these guys with an interest. So now they've got a factor interest, so they're going to change your pricing. And when you look at the cycle, you go, man, this is stupid. Like, this is dumb.
Yeah.
Okay, enter the People's Fund. We'll give you the money for this thing.
Yes.
Or secondly, you've got the same government who writes the laws for the acts, for the credit acts. We make it impossible for entrepreneurs to access capital. We'll go into detail of that. People's Fund comes in and says, we know how to make it so that you don't usurp the Credit Act, but at the same time, you're helping the entrepreneurs that actually need funding, right?
Yes.
You're also helping the Black entrepreneurs, right? Like primarily who you're focused on is the Black entrepreneurs because they can't access capital anywhere, right? Government spends almost $1 trillion a year on buying from businesses, right? Do you want to guess how much of that goes to Black businesses?
Just to nothing.
Yeah, about 5%.
Yeah.
If you looked at government spending as an economy, it would be the 7th biggest economy on the continent, right? Just government spending, right? There was an article that the DA member of parliament wrote. Nah? I don't care about all of those parties, ANC, DA, EFF, we have fun about. Now, I'm speaking about the specific intent that I saw in that article, right?
Yeah.
This DA member of parliament wrote an opinion piece, put it in Daily Maverick, and Daily Maverick posted that article almost like a journalistic work, right? And I was annoyed. I was like, this is deceptive. Because I looked at the name, I was like, who are you? Are you a journalist?
No.
And the article says government owes small businesses 7 billion in unpaid invoices. Then it says in over 30 days, right? We're all going up in arms. Government hasn't paid 7 billion to small businesses, right? Government is a terrible payer, right? Do you know what? Do you want to know what that is a percentage in government spending? Less than 7%, less than 1% of their annual spend is what they owe in over 30 days. So every other invoice was paid in under 30 days.
Yeah.
Why I don't like that article is what is your objective in pushing people away from tendering with government? I want to just stop and think about that for a second. You know, like there's a word we throw around that annoys me. We call it tenderpreneur, right? And we have a skin color that we associate with that word tenderpreneur, right?
Do.
What tenderpreneur? When black entrepreneurs are less than 5% of this. And let me also correct. When I say 5%, it says transformed. 5%, so less than 10% of the spending goes to transformed businesses. Transformed businesses could be 100% white owned. Just got a good BE scorecard, right? So less than 10% is going to transformed business. Let's not even go into what is the black ownership? What is the youth ownership? What is the woman ownership and that sort of thing? And it annoys me, like it annoys me to no end, right? Because I think before we started, Kamo, if you don't want them to know you on the podcast, now they know you. Kamo was mentioning before the thing was talked around just how we relate as black people in business, right? And we do that often. We run our own propaganda against each other because we either run the bigger story with, you know? And it's like, stop for a second and think about what you're saying. Why is that being so protected so hard by members of parliament of the DA? Why is that being protected so hard by corrupt Pusasa and all of those companies? Why are they gunning so hard
to ensure that people don't
tender? It's because that's transformative. If you look into the history of South Africa, the Boers, when they took over from the English, what the thing that happened was that government had an active role to play in transforming the working class to become the poor and working class Afrikaner to become like the middle class. Like government is the answer. And it's like, we don't hold them to account. The 8 hours of load shedding, like somebody should be getting punched in the teeth. Like honestly, I was watching a video of somebody who he was a chief of a town somewhere in the rest of the continent. I don't know where. I'm first saying in Tambo on a chief like this. And they are giving him the shambok, right? Like proper. And it's like, man, maybe that's what you deserve. Like nobody needs one. Like you've corrupted the judicial system so much that it's ineffective. Like it's a function of how much money you have, whether you're gonna get prosecuted or not, right? Like it clearly has no ramifications. Fun and shy. And if I'm gonna be called out for invoking violence, angnandaba, fun and shy way. Like fun and shy way. Like Shaiwang.
All right. So do you think what is the actual problem? Is it because black people, if amongst ourselves, and we're not, do we understand what it is, first and foremost? And is government trying to get us to a point in which we don't understand, so that it's sort of it's like gray area kind of situation.
Government is more, it's not government. Government is like, you know what government is like? Imagine in a household, né? There's most of you might be able to relate in this type of household. I didn't grow up in this household, but I'm going to describe it. Né? Imagine there's a mother, an overbearing mother.
Yes.
Né? Orasayo. Ngitshela ukuthi amo hlulina lento le ngihlina lento le amo lungisa lapha. Why uhleli stand? Why intombazana ayihlali stand? Kunomsebenzi la endlini, ne? Then you have this like quiet, meek father who just watches as all of this happens, and it's like, Mom, Marilis two less. Like, won't they say anything to their wife, like about their treatment, right? Government is that husband, right? It's like we passenger,
They're in the room,
but
but are they?
Like we passenger, you're in the room, but you're not part of the room. So they're just useless. One, two. There's a lot of individualism. Everyone's chasing. Like there's nothing that says poverty like having to demonstrate my ability over you. Like nothing says poverty like having gukutempela. Nothing says I lack like having to prove that I have more than you. And I don't know. Maybe it's in our nature. I don't know. When I'm trying to my enemy, my enemies are watching such joke. Like it's not a real thing.
Does it actually exist? How bad? You don't know.
There's no such thing. There's no such thing. You know, like there's people who are going to dislike you, right? Success attracts that, right?
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Right? They're dealing with their own psychological issues. And they're going to have to spend some time with themselves and the psychologist and their shadow and all of those things, right?
Yeah.
Those people definitely exist. I'm not saying they don't exist, right? But when you live for them, like you're lost. Like, and we have this tendency to live for them because we're lost as individuals. So it's like, I really think maybe what must happen, eh? What must happen is like we have to have like psychology as a prerequisite from like grade 0. Nah? And what we're working on is checking your psychological issues until you graduate school. You know? What ELO was intended to be, the most looked down upon subject. Because hey man, still not damaged children who just have a very old age. Like it's like, hey, when I grow up.
And now they're entrepreneurs.
Oh, so entrepreneurship. I will say this though about entrepreneurship. You might think it's a journey to money, but I think it's a journey to God. It's a cut of that process. That process will mold and change who you are in ways you can't imagine. For example, my first business, Paybook, when it started making a decent amount of money, I got hit with the worst depression. Because like, think about it like this. I thought success was the thing I was after. And the success was like financial. Nah? When I hit the financial success, I still had that deep emptiness that I was chasing. Right? And the thing I like to describe it as is like chasing God is like, it's like you're reinventing the image of what's your greatest desire every day, right? And when you hit your greatest desire, then you go, man, there's more. This thing doesn't fulfill me, right? And like what you're changing through the journey of entrepreneurship is your highest idol. At some point it's money, and then it keeps changing. Then it's like impact. Then you're like, oh man, impact is like the new buzzword. Then you hit, and then you move past the impact. Then you're like, man, work is love made visible, and God is love, right? So all I'm doing is expressing into the world. Like that's why artists are so smug, because they feel like they're so close to God, right? Because they're expressing. Like it's a direct pull from flow and expressing, right?
Yeah.
So I like to think that like entrepreneurship is a journey to that, right? Because there's a tinge of creativity and a tinge of grit, right? But what happens in entrepreneurship is a similar thing. There's a creative side, and then there's a stern side that needs to make money to survive, right? And when you merge those two things, what happens is there's a beauty that's created. There's a vulnerability that's strong. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why it's a journey to God. It's like a vulnerability that's strong. Because I think like the bravest thing is to be vulnerable. Like truly. Entrepreneurship. Like you will try at
You're
night.
not there yet.
You're not there yet. You haven't done anything. Like you sleep at night, like and the walls feel like they're caving in on you, like, and you can't breathe. And like you're at this precipice of giving up.
Yeah.
Like there's this silence that hits you. it's almost like so loud, like the chaos, so loud, the failure, it's so loud, all of the pain, like everything is like here. And while that's happening, you have to have an actual life. So either you're having problems with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or all of those things. Your parents are asking, so you want an iman, right? And it's like it's all caving in. It feels like Finland. You know when you're like you just like you're holding the whole world here. Ne?
Yeah.
And then there's this night. I don't know if it's bravery or cowardice, but like you'll feel it at one night where you go, man, I'm tired again. Okay, if you exist, God, take me. I don't have the bravery for suicide, right?
Yeah.
Or the cowardice for suicide, whatever word you want to use for those
Yeah.
things. But in tired again, send grand.
Because I
I
can't.
can't. I give up.
Yeah.
Then in that moment, something weird happens, right? You give up, you surrender, and you're like, God, take me. Then he says, "Hey, kunini ngokumele?" Like, how long have I been waiting for you, self-reliant self, to come with me on the journey? Something weird happens, and then your heart start opening. And the journey becomes lighter, and you don't feel like you're alone anymore, you know? That's why I think it's a journey to God, because you have to become alone to learn that you're not alone. You know? Then you start
Fair.
building differently. Sorry, it was a poetic moment for me. You start building differently.
I hear you. I hear you. So let's talk about 2020 then happens. The pandemic. Economies are in tenterhooks. Nobody knows whether they're coming or going. Entrepreneurs are barely surviving, but now there's a pandemic. So what do you think that kind of structure did for entrepreneurship?
I always like to talk experientially. I've got the highest level of hubris. You've seen my statuses. Sometimes I go God's favorite, right? Like, because God loves me. Like, He puts things in my path, and I think because I believe it, it happens like that, right? And for example, the People's Fund started in 2017.
Yeah.
First year did, was it 1 million? Did 1 million. Second year did 2.5 million. Third year did 42 million. Just when pandemic is starting, does 150 million. I mean, man, sky's the limit. We're going to do 1 billion. Like next year, we're doing 1 billion. Boom. Fall back down. Fall back down. Fall back down and remember who you are, right? You do nothing without me. That's God like talking now. And it's like, it was an interesting period of learning, of humbling, of surrender. I can only speak experientially. I'm not going to speak for the whole entrepreneurial world. I think that's arrogant.
Yeah.
And it's little wish. What's that glass thing they predict the future with? It's mystical.
Yeah.
It's a bit mystical. It's like you're talking nonsense. It's like economists. It's not a real thing. I'm gonna get in trouble with economics.
I'm
did economics. I did economics. It's not a real thing. It's like psychology. It's not a real science. I'm joking, guys. Guys, don't take it seriously. But through that experience, what happened was there was a humbling and there was a carrying, not only by God, also by people around me. They came up to the party, they became better, and even my focus was different. I don't know if you've ever read the Good to Great, the book. It describes different levels of leadership. There's something called a level 4 leader and a level 5 leader. Think of a level 5 leader as a multiplier, somebody who makes everyone else feel bigger around them. So they get really great people, and then they let the great people talk through things, and then they make the final decision. Level 4 is a big charismatic leader who, through sheer power of their personality, drive things, right? Then they've got like weak generals who are like, let's call it yes men, who agree to everything they say so that the things can get done, right? Now I've got a big personality. So for most of my life, I've been a level 4 leader. Pandemic, through its humbling, turned me into a level 5 leader. I hope my business partners don't hear this, but you never do any work at the office anymore, right? Because like I've got a great team, and they're doing amazing things, right?
Yeah.
Like my job is so simple now, or simple, not easy. Like that saying, simple, not easy.
Not easy.
So that's what the pandemic did. It transformed. But like when I say it like that, you know what this feels like? You know, like when you're watching a movie and then somebody gets to it's an action movie and you get to the 30-second montage when they're training.
Yeah.
And then after training, now they're great. Like every time we talk about these sort of transformative moments, they're like sound bites. But it's like the thing we're not describing is that yeah, ngacha. Like yeah, ngacha. Like it was
That's what I want you to touch on.
like yo, we had defaults like nobody's business. Like the People's Fund was like the shining star of purchase order funding, right? Yo, look default. Entrepreneurs are closing businesses and things like that. Clients are not paying. Yo, like we burned. And you've got investors who've trusted you with their money, right? Yeah. They were happy. They were doing 30 to 40% return per year. Now you're telling them, man, your capital defaulting.
Yeah.
Not only are you losing the returns you've already made, you're starting to lose parts of your capital. Look, it's been a tough 2 years of that, right? But it's been transformative. Like I would not have done it any other way. Now we average 60 to 80 million a year, moving back from 150. So stabilized around there. But it's easy, like like they say, hindsight is 2020 vision. It's easy to say this now, but I would not have done it any other way. I've been through a lot in the past 2 years. Potential marriage, annulment of marriage, lots of other things that I will not discuss on the podcast, but it has been nothing short of magnificent. If you ask me how I'm doing, I'd say beautifully and terribly. Like it's like
at the same time.
At the same time, because if you looked at some of the outputs, like the fruits of the life, it's like, man, that's breaking, that's great, that's breaking. You go, man, how are you not having a nervous breakdown?
Yeah.
But if you remember the thing I was discussing about like entrepreneurship being a journey to God, right? There's this piece I found like 4 or 5 years ago, and then it was solidified like 2 years ago, the middle of that crisis, right? It hasn't left. It's never left. It's there. And from that, like you create the most beautiful things. Now we're 30 employees strong. And yeah, we're turning the toy quite nicely. I'm even enjoying other things. I even bought myself nice toys, like having fun.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship paying off. We like to hear it. We love to hear it. 2020 happens, then the unrest happens. Now we have our own little pandemic happening here.
Yes.
Amongst ourselves.
That's
small businesses are saying, Bazong, why are you coming for us now? Sure, go for big business. Go and empty out their stock. Go and mess up with them. Why are you interfering with the thing that you said was going to empower the Lokshin, was going to take every black person out of this bad rut, poverty? What happens now?
Yeah, that was a funny period. Especially when I look back on it experientially. There's this group we're part of. It's called the solvers or brainers or something like that. I don't know what it is. Or thinkers. I don't know.
Wait, do they know that you don't know? What's in this business? My husband. Or
I'm a talk first and for guys, like I love them to bits. They know I love them to bits. But I'm joking, guys. I'm joking. This WhatsApp group we're part of. And I say to them when the unrest starts, I was like, man, all of these platforms, there's different businesses that are all in the similar vein of the People's Fund, like helping the black entrepreneurs to move out of poverty and all of those things, right? Being a participant in the process of them moving out of, because this help thing, Messiah complex, and as we're describing it, I'm like, guys, can't you know that we've been working towards? The thing that we've been avoiding is that it's happening. Don't you guys feel like failures? I remember when the discussion was happening, some of the answers I got showed me that, man, like all of us, including me, are self-interested. Like we do these things for the glory and prestige. Because it's like the crisis we are averting, it's happening right now, right? And everyone's going, man, everyone's trying to do their piece, And it's a fair comment, but it's like, we're failures. Like, just say it out loud. Like, we're failures. Like, because the thing we've always claimed we wanted to do is prevent black communities from collapsing onto black businesses and allowing black businesses to grow. Because, as Julius likes to say, it's like, I must say, Alex, mabadlula baya esentini badlula nabo na EFF angeke badlule ngeke bayijump EFF nabo bazoyithatha bazoyidudula it's like, so it's not only about fixing the income inequality on race levels. It's like, man, I want to actually protect this country from absolute implosion. But then it implodes. There's some political interference as well. Ngoba kuyadanga kule country. Yes. Yarr. Yes, and you get used like puppets. Guys, wait. Can I ask, are you guys sponsored by any of these political people? Like, because if you are, sorry.
I guess that's funding. Funding is gone.
Buy funding, but you'll thank me later. Like that independence. You can't buy that independence, you know? But don't be too much of a Dame Dash. I don't know if you guys know Damien Dash, Jay-Z's ex-business partner. Oh my God. He does I'm independent to the point of fault. He's just like, man, you just don't want to work with people like in a constructive way, right? Like, I'm independent. I'm gonna show you how to be a boss. I'm my own boss.
Yeah.
No one's gonna tell me what to do. Blah blah blah. And it's like, no, you're just stubborn and arrogant. Like,
collaboration is what you're against.
100%. But I will say there's something to that freedom, like not being able to be bought, because capital is very silencing. I watched myself when we started growing. We were getting some decent capital. I watched how I was talking about white people changed. Because they were bringing the capital. Do you understand what I mean? It's like, you start the People's Fund, right, as a crowdfunding platform. Quality is bull. How? When people give you money. Guys, I think we could work together as Rainbow Nation,
Yes.
And I think we could build things. I was like, man, I'm being silenced. Not by any evil action. Not by, like, any third force thing. By my stomach. Right? Like, so I say this to say, it was wrong. Don't trust your thirst. Don't obey you don't obey your instinct like all the time, right? Which is your gut, which is your stomach. Don't obey it all the time. Sometimes go against it. And going against it means saying what is the most truthful thing. Anyway, I diverge from
unrest.
And then that was painful because we did try to do a bunch of solutions. We tried to run a bunch of crowdfunding campaigns. Sorry. And it's not COVID. And when we tried to run a bunch of those crowdfunding campaigns, the thing we kept on trying to get started was the corporates. One of the things I noticed in that period, which still bores me to this day, corporates just care about the PR. Like nobody actually, and I get it. Like let's put the pieces together so you can get your PR and say, man, we helped. But nobody cares about actual solutions. Everyone cares about what looks prettiest. I was part of a talk recently. It's similar. It's going to touch on this. And basically the talk, they were trying to understand why is the township entrepreneur not improving or moving out. And then they did a whole study. At the end of the study, I looked at it and I was like, these answers sound like you guys interviewed the incubators, right? And they're like, yeah, we interviewed the incubators. I'm like, you have no study, basically. You have no study. Because that's not an entrepreneur's response. Like incubators are a whole industry. They've got like an objective that they want to do, right? They want to go get money from corporates so that they can keep running the incubators. They're their own form of entrepreneurs, in fact. So the answers you've got is for a subset of entrepreneurs. It's not township entrepreneurs, And yeah, it hurt them because like they were paying me for that talk. And
now you're saying they don't understand.
And the client was there. Yeah, I'm joking. It didn't hurt them. They enjoyed the insights. I'm not gonna mention them, but by name. But like you guys know, I'm joking, right? Anyway, as we interacted with that, it's the same with this. Nobody wanted to solve the actual problem. People needed supplies and various other things to rebuild their shops and all of those things. There were potential solutions. There was one we almost did with a bank. It was like this close to being done. Where basically they would give out point of sale systems. They would finance the whole rebuilding. Then on the point of sale system, what would happen is 1% of their sales would go back to them paying back what was given to them. You know what I mean? So that it's like, it's not Ibacham. It's just enough. It's based on their sales,
Yeah.
With this close, I don't know who canned it, but the person who canned it, like, it just wasn't cool enough for them.
Didn't get it.
I don't care about you getting it. Like, you don't live in these environments.
Just fund it.
It's just fund it. But yeah, that's That's what it was tough. And I don't think most small businesses have recovered from that. A lot of things changed, but also I'm going to say something very violent. Um, your number one job as an entrepreneur is to adjust. It's adapt. It's to read the room. It's if you're a problem solver, like because people love to have a passion for cooking and etc. etc. You have a passion for cooking. Don't open a restaurant. It's not the same thing. Your restaurant, you're going to be running admin all day long. If you want to open a restaurant, you must have a passion for solving problems, administrative problems, right? If you're going to start a business, don't have a passion like for the thing you're doing, right? Passion matters eventually, right? Like not eventually, as a driving force, but know what you're doing. It's like for this podcast, for example, right? The thing you're solving for is having voices that give enlightenment to ideas that you think need to be attacked and interacted with, right? You're not trying to you're not trying to give new advertising space. Am I making sense?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You're not trying to give new advertising space. You're trying to give life to ideas that might catch on. Then when they catch on, the advertisers go, let's give this person some money. Do you understand what I mean? We want our products associated with them, right? You solve a problem. Somebody's learning from your platform, right? In a similar way, if you're running a business, all you're ever doing is solving someone's problem. You're either solving the problem of price, of time, convenience. That's it. Nothing else exists. Everything else you think exists fits in one of these three categories, and you've made it pretty. You put roses on it.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So
There we go. Okay. So then you start the People's Fund, and I think it's a concept that I found quite interesting and fascinating because on the investment side, because I don't think of myself as an entrepreneur necessarily, but I've always wanted to partake in the industry, in the sector, and whether by skill, whether by whatever I could. So the People's Fund for me represented something that all people in the different sectors can collaborate on to grow this entrepreneurship that we all speak so highly of. Was that the intent?
yeah, it was absolutely the intention. The idea was that like changes is like I can change the world as I am, and I can bring myself as I am to change the world. So whether I'm a professional contributing 100 to 1,000 rand or 100,000, I could participate in this thing. The dilemma is hubris on our parts, that you can't manage that many markets. You can't have professionals on this side, entrepreneurs on this side, institutional investors here, and general crowd members here, right? You're too small as a business. Like you have to grow a solid base of one, or rather of two, if you're on a two-sided market. And then once you've grown that solid base and it made it stable, then invite the rest of the crowds, right? But the intention is absolutely that, and it carried us for a while. Like we started the People's Stockfell, which became a cooperative financial institution, which has intentions of becoming a bank. Netli Pacho, right? Like people contributing 100 rand a month, right? Oh man, like we've done some exciting things. Like when I think back on that, like I keep forgetting that sometimes, right?
Bank on your way.
Awesome. Building a bank, baby, building a bank. And we've outlaid more than 300 million to small businesses. We started this business like with 3,000 rand, right? I loaned the business 3,000 rand, right? And like to see what it is now, like 5 years ago, and it's enabled like 500 million in turnover for small businesses. It's like, this is something, right? So that's exciting. But the problem is, siapap, we can't do everything at the same time at the beginning, right? So to your point, the idea was Gutama professionals are looking for outlets to help small businesses. The psychology also of professionals, though, is not set up for that. Because most businesses are going to fail. Most small businesses are going to fail. So if you put up 10,000 rand, let's say we split it across 10 businesses, before we talk about purchase order funding, just general 10 businesses. If you keep money in there for more than 2 years in those businesses, you'll be lucky if you get back 2,000 rand. Eight of those 10 businesses are likely to fail at some point in that period for something you can't even conceive, right? That's why we also moved to purchase order funding. We weren't doing long-term contracts anymore because like every business was failing. And during COVID, even the ones you trusted, like were tanking.
Apart,
Purchase order funding, the nice thing is we're in the business for a very short time, but it's like a Red Bull into that business because like it's a big project they're either doing that they're not used to in their system. So when you do that project with them, you help them fund it. Now they've got excess cash to go figure out other things to do, right? But yeah, the psychology of the professional needs to change. See, because you're trying something new, it's gonna fail. It's gonna fail many, many times before it works. And maybe the professional is not the early adopter, you know? Maybe it's a different early adopter. Like right now, we do a fair amount of institutional capital. One of the people we use is CIFA. We get capital from them and then we loan it on to the entrepreneurs because CIFA systems were not designed to do transactions that quickly. I will not insult CIFA on this thing. We're good friends. They give me money. So I'm going to let trust my gut and my stomach eat. I'm joking. But like the system of approval doesn't make sense for purchase orders. It's like I got a purchase order I need to deliver in a week's time. So I take you guys 3 weeks to assess my application. Doesn't make sense. Or even a month. And also CIFA didn't have decent collection methods. Got like 60% impairment rate. So for every 100 Rand they send out, they're only collecting 40 Rand, right? We, on the other hand, ours was below 5%, right? So every 100 Rand we send out, 95 Rands coming back, plus some interest, right? So yeah, then it was for the professional, the institutional investor, the private investor, and whatnot.
All of us.
We closed Rank Capital and said entrepreneur is our primary focus and primary customer, and who matches them best. The thing that's clear is institutional investor as the base, and then the professional is going to come on as like the cream on top, creme de la creme on top.
Gotcha. So now the People's Fund has redirected, it's restructured. It's a different kind of platform. So now who can invest? Who is your target audience exactly? Who can invest? How do entrepreneurs get in touch with you in terms of what exactly are you funding?
Gotcha. So we're funding currently strictly purchase order funding or contract financing. So if somebody's got an order with corporate or government, we'll provide the capital so that they can deliver on that order. If they want to get a hold of us, they can go to the website on thepeople.co.za. That's for entrepreneurs. Investor side, we've got a small category of investors, right? Primary target is impact investors, right? People who want to see. So one of the things CIFA is really happy with us on is on the job scorecard, right? Jobs maintained and whatnot, right? Because we fund each. Think of it like this: if you give us like $1 million as an impact investor, yeah, we're going to turn that $1 million maybe 6 times in a year, so it's become worth 6 million, right? So we fund on average each transaction is about 110,000, right? That means that 1 million you gave us can create 60 transactions, right? Which means your impact money is impacting 60 different entrepreneurs from a job perspective, right? So we're looking for those. Usually that's enterprise supply development funds, that's international development funds that are looking to put capital into projects that develop the African continent.
Yeah.
Right? Abo Bill and Melinda Gates. That's the first category. The second category is related, especially for corporate. So remember the thing we were discussing in the beginning, Guti, there's a PR problem we have around tendering.
Yeah.
We've got too little participation of Black young people in tendering. So what we're doing is running how to tender courses, right? Where we make it free for the young people, like unemployed youth and that sort of thing. And what we then do is we get the corporates to pay under the skills development programs or even development programs, right? What we're saying is, you train this person, they become self-sufficient, and they can even come tender into your own platform.
Yeah.
And the beauty is because we're the People's Fund, after training them, we'll actually fund them. So if they win a tender, we'll actually fund the tender that they've won. So we've made it a full-scale thing. And they're learning a skill they can use anywhere. They don't have to, like, if once you learn how to tender, you go, whoa, this is, because also some of the corporates, what do they love is like businesses being compliant. And the difficulty with being compliant is businesses only become compliant when there's a need to be compliant. So when I train you how to be compliant, I'm telling you, you can't tender unless you're compliant. So we show them how to do get the tax clearance, do the bank registration, how to go on CSD, how to do the actual tendering, how to fill the form, how to do the whole thing. And then by the time they're done, then they can go tender on all of the jobs. One of the great things it does, it's going to bring the cost that government spends down because there's like a wider competition of people. So we're looking for corporate investors want to invest in those programs for entrepreneurs. And finally, private investors who want to make a return. We still look at them. We'll always look at them.
They've got capital.
We've got capital. Who want to participate. The minimum check size though now is 1 million and above for now. And we just rotate the money. I mean, there you're looking, the investors are making between 15 and 22% per annum on their capital. Of course, it's got a leaning to impact investing because it's higher than the normal, the average, but it's not like blown out of the park high like it used to be, right? Things have changed, guys. Things have changed.
Humble.
And I think it's also made us more stable so that even when we're looking for investors, we're looking for the right thing. Impact investors. It's like, man, there's a likelihood that we might tank this money in the first year because we're going to be trying more entrepreneurs to participate and they're not going to pay back, right? So that's why we're looking for impact investors in that way. So, yeah, I think I've covered.
You have indeed. You have indeed. So let's talk about doing business with government. It's been put up as something that has lots of bottlenecks, something that is not beneficial to entrepreneurs. It doesn't work out. If you put in money into government, you're going to get paid 2 months later, if at all. Takes forever. Documentation is unbelievable. Have those bottlenecks been solved? Or are we just crying wolf?
It's a mixed bag. Yeah? One, government is the best payer in the country from all institutions. So we don't work directly with government. We just work with the entrepreneurs on their government projects. Yeah? And the thing we found is that government is the best payer for small businesses by far. There's a company here. Where's its office? It's somewhere here. It sells alcohol.
Yeah.
You can go 6 months without getting paid by that company. Always putting my foot in my mouth. I mentioned no names. They got bought recently by another international company. So I changed the whole finance structure. Now finance goes through Mauritius or Seychelles or somewhere there. So if you do work with them, you could take 6 months. It could take 180 days from the time you invoice to the time you get paid, right? And it's the same for most corporates. I mentioned this company because it's actually one of the biggest companies in the country, which buys from the most number of suppliers and various other things, right? It's crazy that one of the biggest companies in South Africa is an alcohol brand.
I mean, is it?
It's sad.
What's the latest study? But it's the 16th in the world
of alcoholics.
I mean,
sure.
Got lots of problems.
Nah, man, it's intense. And I can't cast any aspersions because look the background you gave us. Look at the background you gave us. We are one of the biggest wine exporters in the world, aren't we? Which is good for the economy, I guess. Let's kill somebody over there, but let's make it good for the economy. Booyah. I'll never stop being ungovernable. Well, the point I'm making is that corporates are the worst payers of small businesses. Like by far, like it's not even close. Because it's a cash flow management thing. And you know what? Because you're a small... If you've ever dated somebody out of your league, you'll know this thing. Like, this person knows you need them. So they abuse you. Like, they do. So, I say this all the time. It's like, man, know your worth, right? Like, this is a catchphrase now. Know your worth. Like, if you date somebody out of your league, like, for men, it's like, I'm at a certain level financially right now. This girl is way out of that league. Yeah. For girls, it's, man, I'm here right now in my life. Nah, this man, I don't know why he even picks me. Nah, that's out of your league, right? When those two things meet, a very ugly power dynamic happens, right? It's the same with small businesses and corporates. It's a very ugly power dynamic because you need the corporate. The thing you don't know is the corporate uses you to bankroll its cash flow. Because you're not going to complain, because then they'd say, no, you know what, I'll use somebody else. They'll put you on 120 payment terms, 120 days payment terms. Government, on the other hand, it needs votes all the time. So all of its objectives are around getting the people to be happy. So that's why it's got 30-day settlement terms. Is it all the departments? Definitely not. There are problematic ones. Free State, Eastern Cape, Ekurhuleni, name them, name and shame. They're problematic, corrupt and problematic. Somebody sue me. I told you I missed lawsuits.
Wait, please don't take us with you.
No, never. You guys must start the show and say, we do not believe in the views expressed in this podcast. Any views expressed by Luyanda Jafta, and Luyanda Jafta specifically, not even off the People's Fund, just his views alone. But the point I'm making is, they are problematic. Eastern Cape as well. How did I forget Eastern Cape? One of the most problematic. There are problematic departments and things like that, but generally they're good payers. It would shock you which ones are the great payers. It's all the departments that are currently having problems now. Do you know who's one of the best payers in the country right now? To break your heart, ESCOM. Like, ESCOM is an amazing payer. It's so strict with its procedures and processes and whatnot. Like when I look at ESCOM's even tendering process, I go, man, ESCOM, Transnet is often a great payer. Gauteng departments used to be great payers. Nah?
Yes.
Department of Health used to be great. And I want to shout out to actually a CFO who used to work there, right? Kabel. She was great. Political interference during COVID times, infections, all of that. They fired her. Effed up. Yo, I'm gonna get in so much trouble. Guys, I need to work with a bodyguard from now on,
Because you're starting things.
I'm starting things. Like, Gauteng Health used to be such a great payer. It was so perfect. And it's like, I don't think people understand how hard you have to work to break a working thing. Because government try to put in systems that are good. But it's like we don't call each other out because everyone's greedy. Everyone's going, okay, manje ngipani, kuthi ngikufakela. And I was like, no. So part of the how to tender program we're running, né? What we want to teach people is how to contest the tender that you weren't awarded if you think you should have been awarded it.
Oh.
Né?
Okay.
I'm tired of corruption. Young bore, young irritate. Né? And how that works is most people don't know the law around that, right? Have you seen how white people are contesting? Man, white people know the law, man. Have you seen how they're contesting tenders in courts and whatnot? They even wore a BE case. Imagine governments with a 60% poverty rate, with the highest Gini coefficient in the world, that's race-based, and then they implement a BE policy. A white company goes and says, taking you to court with the government, and wins. Uchi, you can't implement a BE policy for awarding of your contracts. What ludicrous madness is that? What madness is this? Sometimes we allow this thing to happen. We're too good sometimes, right? But the point is, even that how to tender program, we want a bigger group of people to say, I want an audit on how this tender was awarded. So apply that wonka ma tender. Really audit. Tender leni award kanjani? Lono patale brown envelope uzawuvela. Uzophuma. And then I think that will create the cleanup.
I was about to say, you went straight where I wanted you to go. Purchase order scams. I had never even heard of it until I heard you speak on it. What is it? And how there's no way that we're suffering from those things.
Anywhere there's an opportunity, there's a criminal out opportunitying the opportunity. Basically, purchase order scams, there's two levels. The first level is somebody creates a fake purchase order from a department. And then when you're on the supply database, you see that fake purchase order come in, you're like, man, I want a contract, right? You go source the goods from the supplier, get them delivered to their address, then you invoice. You're social up waiting for payment. When you go try knock at department, but I want to squash. How kanjan? Kanti people have created a whole fake profile of government department and all of those things. They take those goods and then they resell them. after you've worked hard for them. So fake purchase orders are a real thing. They're dangerous, in fact. Many hundreds of thousands have been lost by people. In fact, my team knows fake purchase orders quite well, very, very well. Um, so I don't even know what they look like. I told you I don't work. I don't know what they look like.
But you know they exist.
I know they exist.
Yeah.
So that's the first layer. The other thing is, I don't call it fake purchase order, but like purchase order corruption. It's so bad. Every tender people are trying to get in bad departments, right? They're trying to win them illegitimately. So it's like ngazuzi bantu amanda nyamazi. I'm the procurement manager lapha. Bese uyaza kimi athi, please put in a tender proposal for XYZ. I've seen all of the other proposals. Make your pricing XYZ so that you can win it. When you win it in the profits, what we're going to do is you're going to get 1,000 rand, I'm going to get 1,000 rand. First layer of the corruption. Second layer, you're waiting for payment. You're an entrepreneur, small business. Finance, still part of the procurement department. Hey, finance, why my payment? No, the invoice was sent wrong. You know what? But I can make it go quicker, this thing. For poultry, right? Seems like a small thing. It's like, why do you want me to pay you to do your job? Like, why do you want me to bribe you to do your job? Like, just process my invoice. That's big. Yeah, and just collusion as well. Yo, there's also something that's very painful. So try to think of all of these industrial companies, Eskom, Transnet. This is going to break your heart. Eskom, Transnet, and the various other industrial kind of organizations.
Yes.
Most of them were built and were serviced by like white-owned companies that were very big, right? Who had big contracts. Government comes in and says, man, I've got a set-aside target. I want black people to participate in these contracts, right? So I'm not going to award them to the big companies. I'm going to award them to the smaller companies. Smaller companies have to go through that same supplier. Like, for example, some parts from Eskom, you can only import them from Germany. There's one company that owns the license for import of some of those parts, right? Into South Africa. They own the South Africa region, right? So even if you win the tender, you're going through them. Some of them, what they do is when you come and order the part, they delay the shipment. Delay the shipment on purpose. You come and say, listen, I want to order. And then they go, why is government buying this from you when we're the official distributor in the country? They delay the shipment. What that does is you all become late to your client. And when you're late to your client, you get blacklisted. So then you can never participate in the tender process again. And then they go, oops, here's the late thing. It's like when it arrives, government's like, we don't want it anymore. We had to go source it by other means, you know? And
probably back to the company.
Yeah. So then it tanks most companies. Like we've dealt with a few of those cases. Now the most entrepreneurs don't have lawyers. One of the things we showed up on is lawyers because we knew we were going into hell. You know when you know you're going into a pit bull fight, and you're like, okay, I'm wearing my thick pants today. If it bites my calves, we're running, right? Like we're staying safe. So we knew we were gonna go into a fight, and yeah, it's been a beautiful fight. Actually miss fighting. Like we haven't been fought in a while. You know, like we haven't been fought in a while. I am not inviting anything. Father God.
Something I should peace.
Father God.
How about just peace? A little bit.
No, we're enjoying peace right now. I think the most turmoil is in our personal lives.
That's fair. That's fair. God will handle that.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Last question. What's next for the fund? Where are we going?
Oh,
What
man.
are we doing?
What we're doing is we're turning that big gap of youth that is unemployed into traders. You know, like it's like, man, I want you to learn independence. So I'm gonna teach you this course, but like use this like as a stepping stone for you to be able to participate in the economy, like the real economy, you know? Like that's the next step for the fund. That's the thing like I'm looking at. Like, you know, when you wake up, you sleep, and all you're thinking about is that. So we're going to the jobs funds, to the you see, now I'm putting you out on a podcast. If jobs fund, you don't fund this, you're not serious about jobs. All of the corporates, every single corporate, every single fund that claims to be for the youth and unemployment, and we're saying, listen, this is what we're doing, right? Yo, like I'm super, like I can see it, like and it's like in the next 5 years, man, the youth unemployment number is going to move. Like, it's going to move, and people are going to participate in the economy, not just in government tenders, but like in the broader tendering process. That's dominating how to tend the program. Like that's all that's happening in my head.
Lovely. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Luyanda Jafta, the CEO of the People's Fund.